Hello, Rupert. I'm
Hello.
Benny.
Hi.
Very grateful to be here. There's kind of an overarching theme here, and I just am looking for some feedback about the experience I had this morning during the meditation. A lot of the times it is a rest, just resting and being, but it's like being wanted to go up and out and everywhere was the felt sense of it. And it felt fast, it felt enormous, and it was just like you wanted to stay there. And oddly enough, her seeing light, I saw crosses coming from that tradition just coming by really fast. And it was the most pure sense of I am that I've ever, just tuning forked with. And then that sense fell away. And there was no objective qualities. Don't know how long that lasted. Didn't feel like I fell asleep. But when you can't use any of your sense perceptions and think or feel or anything, there is just some bare knowing, like you said, feeling like that you were awake when you were asleep. And then it's like the I am sense came back online. And it gave, because like you said, you really can't remember or give any qualitative or quantitative anything about that. But when it came online, it was just oceanic. It made this room, when I opened my eyes, look like the closet in my bedroom. I mean, it was just everywhere. And then it kind of got a little less subtle. And there was no discrimination. If you were talking, or if I was breathing, or if a chair was moving, it all just was the same stuff, like a little popcorn kernel that just coming up in that big old area. And as it settled down again, sound, you talking, I'm sitting, chair moving. It's like things went from extremely subtle to extremely gross to, okay, my left foot, is asleep, kind of a feeling. So I don't know, that's something that I had never run some kind of, gamut like that, and I just wanted your feedback on, and that sounds similar to those other two prior, what your feedback would be on. I guess I'm most interested in that gap, because it was a clear, the most crisp sense of being gone, back.
Yes. So then you described first that being felt vast, and that's in contrast with the previous and normal feeling that being is tiny, constricted, located inside the body. Mm-hmm. So when being is relieved of that limitation, we first might feel that it's vast, but being is not vast. It doesn't have any dimension. So vast is just the mind's way of representing the fact that it's no longer contained in the body. So you went from the feeling of being tiny, contained, restricted, to it being vast, but then you lost also the sense of being vastness. So it's as your thoughts and perceptions thinned, being was relieved of a limitation, but thought and perception was still there, so you perceived it and conceived it as being vast. But then as thought and perception thinned out even more, you lost all sense of time and space.
The world.
And the world and objects, and you were there for You can't say how long because there was no time there. But then thought and perception begin to come back again, but to begin with just very subtly. So again, being then feels oceanic, vast. Shades of the prison house begin to descend on the growing boy. The prison house of thoughts and perceptions are beginning to the shades, the shadow of thought and perception is beginning to impose itself on being. First it was infinite, which means no dimensions at all. Then as thought and perception begins, you feel it's vast. And then as thought and perception comes online more and more, it gets smaller and smaller and smaller as well.
That's exactly how it felt.
And as it gets smaller, objects which when you were in pure being, there were no objects at all. But then objects begin to emerge. But they're not. It's as you say. It's a chair. It's a sensation. You can't separate out objects. Thought and objects haven't been separate. But there's still some kind of objective experience.
It's the same texture.
It's all the same texture. But as the shades of the prison house begin to descend, then the objects begin to separate out. The noise, which was it then becomes a chair moving. This vague, nebulous sensation then becomes my left foot. So then objects begin to become, separate objects become more and more distinct, and you find yourself back in the body. Being seems to be limited. A chair is a chair, a person is a person. So it's this dissolving of thought and perception. To begin with, you seem to get larger and larger, you expand. And then even the sense of expansion disappears because being has no dimensions. And then thought and perception come back, but only slowly to begin with. So objective experience, there are not clear, distinct names and forms, but then names and forms.
That's interesting you said that, because getting to that place seemed light speed, but it was very gradual on the back end. Like, just kind of the way you were describing it. You're describing it perfectly.
Wordsworth describes it much better than I do. He I don't know if I can remember it. Our birth is but a sleep and a forgetting. The soul, our life's star that rises with us, hath had elsewhere its setting and cometh from afar. But not in entire forgetfulness, nor in utter nakedness do we come from God, which is our home. But not in entire forgetfulness, nor in utter nakedness, but trailing clouds of glory do we come from God, which is our home. And then he describes that shades of the prison house begin to close upon the growing boy. But he beholds the light, and whence it came, he sees it in his joy. The youth, who farther daily from the east must travel, still is nature's priest. At length, the man perceives it die away and fade into the light of common day. The youth who farther daily from the east must travel still is nature's priest. The man perceives it, at length, perceives it die away and fade into the light of common day. So again, this is Wordsworth describing how being is infinite, but shades of the prison house begin to close upon the growing boy. But he still beholds the light. He's only 5 years old, so his thought and perception haven't completely objectified his experience. He still perceives the light. Wordsworth said, shades of the prison house begin to close upon the growing boy. He still perceives the light. He sees it in his joy. But then, as he grows older, the youth who farther daily from the east must travel still is nature's priest. It still is in touch with nature's eternity.
And what's interesting is walking today and everything, there's so many youth memories, and it just felt like I could be 7.
Yes, exactly, because you've regressed, so to speak. You've gone back to that to the state of the boy whose being is beginning to be enclosed in thought and perception, But still the light is filtering through that. He sees it in his joy. He still beholds the light. He sees it in his joy. So although the materiality of the world, the objectiveness of the world is present, it's still transparent to the light of being. So you feel you're a 7-year-old boy and everything is glowing with radiance. And then as thought and perception begins to solidify, so names and forms, we get names from thought, we get forms from perception. Names and forms begin to become more concrete. Infinite being seems to become 10,000 things. And the light begins to diminish. We begin to see the world as a material world. At length the man perceives it die away and fade into the light of common day. The man, he loses, in our adult life, we lose touch with this vision of the world as the shining of being. And it fades into the light of common day, where objects are objects and people are people and things are things. And we lose touch with the sacred. The sacred no longer shines in and as the world. So during the meditation, you had this experience of reversing this process, going back to being. And then when you were walking, the memory, it wasn't the memory from the past, but the memory from inside you, your present memory, enabled you to see the world transparent to its reality still. So you felt that the world was glowing with a kind of inner light, not with a physical light, but with a light of being. Mm-hmm. That's beautiful.